Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. It's Shrogs, and today we're going to be going over some tips and tricks to be a better captain of your ship. So if you're having a hard time sailing your ship and lining up your cannons and knowing when to repair your ship, and if you find yourself sinking a lot or taking a lot of damage, this guide should help you out to become a better captain. Before we get started, if you guys enjoy the content, make sure you give it a like because it helps me out, and go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more of this kind of content. Alright guys, so the very first tip for you guys, and this one's pretty basic, but a lot of people don't know this, is that if you get your ship in a position where you're gonna crash immediately once you raise your anchor, then what you can do is raise your sails, raise your anchor, and when your ship's not moving, you can actually turn it, which I don't really know how this works, and I think this is why most people don't know this, is because it doesn't really make sense. Like, how is your ship turning right now when there's no movement to it? Like, does it have a little jet siphon on the bottom? What's going on with this thing? But you can do it. So now we're facing outwards and we are able to sail away just fine without taking any damage. This one, it took me a long time to learn. I used to just crash into the shores all the time while getting turned around, only to finally figure out that you can actually turn while sitting still. And so looks like Warrior is actually turning a little too much here, but we're going to head over to do some ghost ships and learn how to do some ship combat and steering your ship properly. All right, what's Warrior doing here? Okay, we're back to where we started, Yash. Let's go ahead and get this thing out of here, yeah?
I need help.
I need help, he says. He says I need help. Okay. Yeah. What's he doing? Yash, I think you're going to crash here, buddy. Okay, well. So this works out great because this leads me to my next segment. My next tip for becoming a good captain is learning how to use the harpoons. It seems like a lot of new players don't realize this is a thing, but no matter how stuck your ship is, it seems like we're kind of stuck here. It's not too bad, but sometimes you can get your ship into really odd places. So no matter how stuck you get your ship, you can always get unstuck using the harpoons. So these things are designed to pretty much send you flying once they get stuck. So let's say we shoot the ground here. If we hold left trigger on our controller or right mouse click, if we hold it down, eventually, even though our ship's not moving, as long as you keep it held down, your ship's eventually going to activate its unstuck mechanic, basically. It's going to fly you away eventually with enough time. So we're just going to keep holding down the left trigger until something happens, and hopefully our ship will no longer be in this really weird position. So we'll see what happens.
2 hours later.
Okay, so it took a while, but there we go. We're now unstuck. It just launched us backwards. All right, guys, now let's get on to the good stuff, the fun stuff. We're going to go spawn some ships into the game by putting down a Spectral Fleet quest, which, if you're new to the game, you won't have access to these, but if you level up your Order of Souls, you'll be able to start doing them. But we put this down, and we're going to go ahead and fight some spectral ships to show you how to line your ship up, how to be a good captain, when to steer the ship, when to shoot the cannons, when to switch roles with your partner, when to repair the ship, and things like that. All right, guys, so when you're approaching enemy ships, your goal as a captain is going to be lining it up so your cannons can shoot your enemy and so that your enemies can't shoot back. And basically what that means is every ship in this game, they can only shoot from the sides of their ship. There's no front-facing cannons. There's no rear-facing cannons. And so, ideally, you want the front or the back of the enemy ship facing you, and you want the side of your ship facing them. And so here, I'm going to do my best to get in front of this galleon here, so I'm just out of range of their shots, and keeping them in my broadside. All right, guys, so for this segment, I want to show you guys how these ships work from a top-down view so that you get a better understanding of what you're lining up with your ship as you're approaching enemies, and basically it gives you just a better idea of what you're doing. This is the front of your ship, so this is the direction that it's going. This is the back of the ship, and this is the guide that your cannons will shoot in. So if your ship is facing to the left in this picture, its cannons can fire within these directions because the cannons face sideways, and can aim slightly forward and slightly back. And basically anything within these two cannons is in the danger zone. They can be shot at, and they can be killed by your cannons. And same thing on the opposite side. If they're within your two cannon shots, then they can be hit within some indefinite range. You know, they can only shoot so far. But if a ship gets in front of you or behind you, then there's no way for you to shoot them. So this is the safe zone. Same thing in the back. And so what that means is basically if someone's in the front or if they're in the back, you're not going to be able to land any hits on them. And so you want to try to avoid putting them in this area. But if you end up getting your enemies on the side of your ship in these areas, well then you're going to be good to go and you're going to be able to take out targets. Okay, so for this example, guys, we're going to be the blue ship. Our enemy is going to be the red ship. And so as you can see, a lot of the times what happens, you guys, is people will sail straight on into their enemy, just like this. So they're just going in a straight line. They sail right by their enemy. And so what usually happens is as we're sailing in this direction, our enemy's doing the same thing because they're not just sitting still in place. So they're sailing this way. And so what happens is red shoots to the left, blue at the same time shoots to the right, and we cross by each other. And so what ends up happening is the time that they're in our red kill zone is very brief because they're going to the left, we're flying to the right, and they're only in it for just a brief second there where you only get a couple shots off. And by the time you ever see them again, they've already repaired the damages that they've taken. So here's what happens if you don't turn your ship to line up. Basically, what's going to happen is, you know, if you're crossing each other straight on, you're just going to blow by each other. And if you're on the cannon here, like, you're only going to be able to land 2 shots here on an enemy. So, you know, we shoot as soon as we can. We'll see if we can get a third one. We might be able to on this one. Okay, so we got 3 shots, but now you can see we're going in opposite directions and we're blowing past each other. And so that's why you never want to just go head on with an enemy ship. You're not going to be able to do a lot of damage. You're going to repair all the holes by the time you get back if it's a player. And so you want to be turning before you approach an enemy to line up your broadside. And so what this leads us to is needing to change our angle of attack so that we can get our enemy into our broadside or the side of our ship where we can actually hit them while keeping ourselves out of their broadside. And so we're going to simply do this by changing the angles of our ship. And so if you can imagine, as we're approaching from maybe right here, you know, if you're a few ship lengths away still, you're not too close. You know, if you're nose by nose, it's too late. But as you're approaching them, you're going to want to either turn your ship to the left or to the right. By simply making a left turn or a right turn, we have now put our enemy within our kill zone. So no matter which way we go, this ship is going to be getting hit by our shots here. And so this is a dead man. The good news about this is while he's in our kill zone, we have actually avoided his kill zone. And so we actually can't take damage, but he can take damage. And so this is where making your turns can give you a huge advantage, simply by just understanding the basics of maneuvering your ship as you approach. Okay, guys, so let's say we had initially made that left turn here. Now, if we don't do anything else from here on out, we're just going to continue going in this direction. We're going to fly away over up here, and this guy's going to keep sailing this way. And so in order to maintain attacks on them, because the #1 way to sink a ship is to land consecutive shots, because if you don't land them consecutively, they're just going to repair the holes and bail the water out. So at this point, we now want to crank our wheels to the right. And by cranking the wheels to the right, what we're going to end up doing is we're going to end up following this path and doing a circle around them. And by doing a circle, this whole time, he's going to be in our broadside, and we're only going to enter it twice. So as we come across on his right side, we'll be in the broadside. And as we come across his left side, we'll be in his broadside. But while we're in the back, we won't take any damage. And while we're in the front, we won't take any damage. And this is where our advantage comes in, is because since we're turning our broadside the whole time, he is always going to be in our broadside, and he will die no matter where we are around this circle as long as we're turning tight. And so as you guys can get a good visual aid, our enemy is always going to be in our broadside as we're doing a 360 loop around them. And so our enemy is always going to be in our broadside, and this is where our advantage comes in, is we're only going to be in their broadside for a very brief time on the top and a very brief time on the bottom. But other than that, we have a huge advantage because they're always going to be in our broadside. And this is the basics to ship combat, is how can you keep your enemy in your broadside without being in theirs? And if you can master that, then you're going to always have a pretty big advantage. Now, of course, this is a video game, so you always have things like rigging balls and anchor balls and other ways to give yourself an advantage in fights. But in order to get advantages from those, you really need to understand the basics, which is this right here, that no matter where you are on the seas, if you can dodge somebody's broadside while keeping them in yours, you're always going to have a huge advantage. So the basic fundamentals really of being a good captain is simply keeping your broadside lined up on your enemies and staying out of your enemy's broadside. So here we're going to briefly be in theirs, but we're immediately going to be leaving it. But the whole time, even though we entered theirs and then left it, the whole time they're still in ours. Like, we can keep shooting these guys this whole time. My job here is going to try to get us out of this. And because I had repositioned my sails, we're moving pretty quick, which means hopefully we'll be able to get in front of them out of their broadside there. So if you guys can hear it, the water levels, you can hear the creaking in the ship. So this is a time where you want to start bucketing. And you don't necessarily need to repair anything, but just get a couple scoops of water out of your ship and then head back up. Because, like I said, you don't want to crash right now with all these holes. Or crash into an enemy ship, because that can potentially sink you. So we're horseshoeing around these guys, basically doing a circle around them. And what this is doing is this whole time they're in our broadside, we're going to eventually enter theirs, but it's just going to be very briefly. So here we're entering the broadside, and we are moving a little too fast. So I'm going to slow us down so we can do a tighter circle around them. But yeah, we're in their broadside for just a short amount of time. We're now out of it, and they're still in ours. So that's why you want to be doing these little loop-de-loops or half-circle horseshoes around them, because it's going to keep them in your firing range, and you're only going to be in theirs for a very brief amount of time. All right, guys, so for this next segment, we're going to be teaching about doing the right things at the right time. And so as the captain of the ship, the top priority is making sure that you're sailing it into a place that's safe and not going to get you killed. So for this example, let's say you're anchored at an outpost and an enemy ship pulls up and starts shooting you. So I have Warrior up on the cannon to represent an enemy ship. And so what a lot of people will do is once they start getting hit, they're going to run down to start making repairs. But the mistake with that is if I'm down here repairing the ship and we're still a sitting duck, we're just going to keep getting shot. So every time I repair a hole, a new hole is going to show up, and we're actually not doing anything. So it's better to just eat some hits and then work on sailing away than to start repairing. So we got caught out of position. We're being shot, and so, crap, we got to get out of here. I could run down and start repairing, but we're not going to do that. The first thing I'm going to do is start raising this anchor as fast as I can, while simultaneously watching my own health bar. I haven't been hit yet, but I do want to make sure that I don't die here, because if I die and my ship has 5 holes in it, it's going to end up sinking by the time I get back, especially if you're on Xbox, because you have really long loading times. Okay, so we're sailing out of here. We can no longer be shot by the enemy ship, and so now we can go ahead and take a look. And as you can see, they did a lot of damage to us, but look how much time we have. So I even have more time to keep sailing away or doing whatever I need to do. Let's say I need to eat some food, or maybe I needed to lower my sails. And so here the water's coming up, but we had a lot of time before we were actually at risk. So you can see you're given a lot of time here. How do you know when you're going to sink? How do you know when you got to get down there? So I want you guys to listen to some audio cues here, and it's going to give it away when our ship is going to sink or not. So let's go ahead and listen to it now. Did you hear that creaking right there? It really started to creak as it got up to this second deck. Let's go ahead and listen to that again. There's the audio cue right there. So you hear how it really starts to creak there? So no matter where you are in your ship, whether you're steering the ship, shooting the cannons, if you start hearing this creaking, that's when you know, okay, no matter what I'm doing, I need to drop it and start bucketing water. Because that, when you hear this creaking, the water's really high, and we're really close to sinking right here. And so those audible cues are going to tell you when that water level gets near sinking, and so it's going to be time to go repair. Even if your ship is still in a position where you're at danger of getting shot, let's say you were in the middle of raising your anchor, it doesn't matter if you finished raising the anchor or not. If you hear that creaking, you got to run down there and start bucketing, because if you don't, well, you're just going to end up sinking in just a matter of a couple of seconds. So when you get to this position on your ship where it's full of water, the number one thing that you want to do is bucket So even if we had 7 holes on our ship, we're gonna just pull water with our bucket. Even if you had 10 holes on your ship, you're gonna bucket. And the reasoning for that is because you can almost always out bucket the holes. But let's say we had 7 holes on our ship and we started repairing. Well, while that one hole is gonna stop filling up with water, the 6 other holes are going to keep filling it up, and what that will do is sink us. And so just bucket the water until you've gotten most of it out, and then repair a hole. Then bucket a couple more times, then repair the next hole. Bucket a couple of times, repair the next hole, and eventually you'll save your ship. Alright guys, that's it. That's all I got for this video. That's some tips and tricks for being a better captain of your ship, and going over some steering maneuvers and how to approach enemies, when to switch roles, and things like that. So I hope you enjoyed the video. I really appreciate you making it this far. If you did, you're a champ. If you liked the video, please give it a like. If you want to see more content like this, let me know down in the comments section below, and go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And it tells me that you guys like this kind of content, and so that I should keep making it. As always, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. But until then, take care.